I'm Victoria Welsby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin.
So, it's summer. It's our last show together. Oh my glob.
I know. For now, I guess. Like, we didn't really talk about it when we went out for dinner the other week. But we were supposed to.
Went out for your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Couple of weeks ago.
A month ago now.
How old did you turn?
43.
Woo! Haven't been dead yet. Hooray!
I know.
Right.
You get into 40 and you just like don't even know. Like you literally have to like do the math in your head because you can't remember.
Same. I'm 37. I think from the age of 35, I've always rounded up my age, and then when I get to my birthday and then I calculate how old I actually am, I'm like, oh, I'm a year younger than what I thought. This is great. So it's a good like problem to have in my brain because I keep thinking I'm 38. Then I remember I'm 37, and I'm like, oh, bitch, cool. I've got another year. You know, yeah. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to do it.
So now today, our last episode, what are we talking about?
So we are talking about, we really just want to put the nail in the coffin as it relates to dieting. And so we are answering the question, what if you need to lose weight? I said it like that because you capitalized the need.
Yeah. Well, you need to lose weight.
Need to lose weight. Yeah, and I think we both got a lot of feedback from our audiences around this. So it should be good. We'll just do a brief intro of the show for anyone who's listening. This is Death to Diets, where we talk about diet culture, ridiculousness of diet culture, stuff that's happening that's more topical, as well as stuff that, you know, we've heard from you, feedback from you on things that you want us to discuss. And we don't shame people for dieting. We really just talk about the cultural issue of dieting in general and how it hurts individuals and what we can do better.
Yes. And who are you anyway, Summer? Who the hell are you?
I'm Summer Innanen. I'm a professionally trained coach that specializes in body image, confidence, and self-worth. And I've been doing this work for about 8 years. I help people from all over the world, and I host a podcast called Eat the Rules.
Yes.
Who are you? Who are you?
Who am I? I'm still trying to work it out, Summer. I don't know. But here is a 3D print of my teeth. So, yeah.
Where'd that come from? Oh, is that from the...
He said, do you want this? And I said, fuck yeah, I want this 3D printing of my teeth so I can put it on my desk. I mean, come on.
Do you think Dougal will come and just like put it in his mouth one day?
Well, I went like this to Dougal to see if it would scare him, but he didn't realize that it was my teeth. You know, I kind of like, for those who can't see, I'm smashing them together in a bite thing, but he just sniffed
that
them.
Is cool.
Yeah, so, you know, anyway, that's a close-up of my 3D printing of my teeth. I teach people how to unlearn fatphobia. So that's all people, fat people, thin dietitians, tall people, short people, you know, everyone around the place. And I have a podcast, Fierce Fatty, which is where this is being hosted. If you know me, then that's it. Here is my non-binary crown.
Yeah, happy Trans Day of Visibility.
It is Trans Day of Visibility! Yes! Trans Day of Visibility, and this is the crown that I wore on my gender celebration ceremony on New Year's Eve, and it's got the non-binary colors, which are purple, grey, white, and yellow. But I don't really like wearing it because it makes me feel a bit too feminine. So I'm like it because I want people to worship me, but also don't like it because I'm like, it's a little bit too feminine. I need to mask it up a bit. Maybe put on some spikes or something to mask it up.
Yes, like the Game of Thrones, like the spikes out of the chair type of thing.
Yeah, or it could be like, I don't know, with dicks or something. I'm just thinking, like, what can I find in the local area?
Put your 3D teeth on it. I feel like that would do it.
Oh, right? Because they're the right color scheme too. They're not pointy enough.
Yeah.
Good idea, Summer, but that idea was fucking rubbish. Nice try, but no cigar. No, it's not working. Get some better ideas, Jesus. Yeah. So, Summer, we hear this all the time, right? About, but I need to, well, I don't know if you do. I do. I presume you do. But, with lots of U's, but I need to lose weight. So I need to go on a diet because ... And so you're going to take the first big one and I'll take the other one. And so what is the first reason that people say, but I need to lose weight?
For health being, I think, one of the bigger ones. So obviously, most people believe that in order to be healthy, you have to be in a smaller sized like in a straight sized body or in a lower body weight than you're currently at. We know that is not true. We know that a lot of health conditions are more, it's more about like, there's some correlation there, not necessarily causation. I mean, actually, I was just curious, like, when someone comes to you and says that, how do you answer them usually?
Yeah. So what I would say is, okay, first off, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving out health, blah, 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 whatever it's called, diagnosis, blah, 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 blah. I'm not blah, blah, blahing, blah, blah, blah. But I would ask the questions of like, is normally the big kind of things that we associate with fatness. And so it's normally things like type 2 diabetes. It's normally things like sore knees. It's, like
sleep apnea.
Say that again.
Sleep apnea is one.
Yeah. So it's normally the things that we associate, the things that are going to kill all the fatties. And so I will present with them with information. And so my favorite resource, do you know about this resource? It's the HaysHealthSheets.com. Do you know about that one?
Yeah, I love those. The ones that Reagan Chastain came up with.
Yeah. And so I talk about it like pretty much every podcast episode. Basically everything I ever talk about is just this thing. And so all of them are all on there. So heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, joint pain, joint replacement, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, sleep apnea, PCOS, type 2 diabetes, and osteoarthritis. And if we look at them, every single one, what causes this? And none of them are because you are too fat, because you need to lose weight. And the biggest ones, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver, high cholesterol, things like that, most of it is genetic. And yes, fat people are at a higher risk. We don't know why, but what we do know is that fat people have worse health outcomes because of the stigma that we face, the raging fat phobia that we live in. 2, because of dieting. Dieting is really not great for our health. And 3, because of the subpar healthcare that we get. And so, are those things, any of those things, the fault of fat people? No. So the big thing is, it's not your fault. And let's actually look into what we can do to support health using this information created by Reagan Chastain, Tiana Dodson, and the last person, it's gone out of my head, but it's a medical doctor who's come up with these recommendations. Yeah. So that's what I would say, Summer. What would you say?
Yeah, I always like to ask people, what does health mean to them? I always like to understand, what's your kind of personal definition of health, because I think that really, it can be different. And I think that sometimes when we ask ourselves that question, we might start to identify things that actually don't have anything to do with weight. Like we might say, it's to have energy, or it's to, be able to keep up with my kids, or it's to be able to, sleep well, or, like just different components of health. And when we actually can look at those things, or we can create a personal definition, and I failed to mention like mental health. I think a lot of people, when they don't even think of that. But if you say, well, what about mental health? And they might think, oh yeah, like, stress reduction or some of these other things. We start to see that none of those things really have to do with the size of your body, that, we can work towards better energy, or stress reduction, or better sleep, or better mobility via things that don't require dieting or weight loss, because we know that the outcome of dieting is actually going to be more harmful to your health overall. We know that dieting is a stressor, and we know that weight cycling is not good for your health overall. And so I think if we can create our own personal definition of what health is, and look at what we want more of for ourselves, that's really important. And I also think that just some education around the fact that we don't have so much control over our health as we've been led to believe. I think that diet culture, wellness culture has us believe that like we can control everything about our health. Like if we only find the right supplements, the right nutrients, if we only eat more of the certain foods, that we can, that we can control our health outcomes. And like, that's such bullshit. Like we can't, it's so much, like you said, so much of it is genetic. And I think that a much smaller percentage is really related to things like food and movement. I would say stress is probably a bigger component in that, one that we tend to neglect because we just want to we just feel that like, well, I need to just add more kale to my life or something like that. And that's not actually going to do anything.
What do you mean? I thought that kale meant that you would have everlasting life. No? It's a superfood, right? That's what that means, isn't it?
No? Yeah. Superfood.
Oh, shit. I thought I was going to live forever because I had a kale sandwich one time. Oh my God. Yeah. And that's a really good point there, Summer, is something that I talk about a lot is the determinants of health. And I'm actually going to reshare the graphic on my Instagrams of what I used to think. What I eat and how I move is pretty much 90% of what made up my health status. The reality is my health status is made up of many different things. Things like the fact that I have white skin, that I am university educated, that I live in Canada, that I have access to going to therapy, that I go to visit a doctor who doesn't shame me constantly because of my weight. Only sometimes, that I'm not exposed to guns, that I have safer sex, that I am my social status. Huh?
You don't smoke either, which is
yeah. And so it's actually really, really, really complicated. And there is like health, like what does that mean? What is it? It's such this amorphous concept of we can never arrive at being healthy. It's not a place, it's not a destination we can get to where we're like, right, that's it, I'm done for life, I've ticked the health box and I can just live forever. It's constantly changing. There's so many different parts of what is healthy, and most of it we can't control. And just a kind of quick and dirty overview of the determinants of health. Massive study done. Individual behavior makes up 36% of health determinants of health on the individual level. And individual behavior isn't just food and movement. It's psychological, it's mood disorders, it's risk-related behavior like driving a car and the risks associated with getting into accidents. It's your sleep patterns and physical activity and diet. And so physical activity and diet are just 2 points within 36%. And I think that's something like, I don't know, 6% or something. And so really what society tells us physical health is like 99% how much kale do you eat. In reality, you know, and even in that diet and moving, that doesn't necessarily mean that you just eat kale and work out 75 hours a day. It's actually way more complicated than that and more nuanced and is different for everyone.
Yeah. It's so individual. And like, I just, you know, privilege, like you said, plays such a huge role with all of this stuff. And I think that like, we also need to be asking ourselves, you know, if we want to make changes in the name of health, like if we want to, you know, focus on whether that's blood sugar management or, you know, better stress reduction or sleep or whatever, to always look at what you can add versus what you need to take away. Because I think that we've learned that like, oh, we must take a restrictive approach. We must look at what I should eliminate from my life or my diet. And I'm a big fan of looking at like, well, what can we add more of? And making changes that are really, really small that feel ridiculously doable. Because I think that there's also this mentality of like, well, I'm going to make all these sweeping changes and I'm going to, starting Monday, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to eat this. And, you know, we know how that ends up. You end up kind of in like this kind of the same sort of restrict binge cycle. So really looking at two things. One is like, what can you add and what feels ridiculously doable for you? And, you know, how are you going to feel if your body doesn't change? Like how are you going to sort of assess whether something is working for you? Like what intentions can you set for yourself? Whether that's, well, I'll know it's working for me if I just, you know, if my digestion is better or if I'm sleeping better or if I just feel better overall, and bringing it back to, you know, listening to our bodies to kind of see what feels best for us, knowing that like, it doesn't mean you're less of an individual or if there's something wrong with you, if you have a health condition or if you have diabetes, like it's not your fault. So much of that is like you said, just outside of our control.
Yeah. And the kind of the healthism and ableism that's in there as well. Exactly. Like you say, someone who is not healthy or not able-bodied is exactly equally as worthy and important as someone who is quote unquote healthy, whatever healthy means.
Yeah. And if you choose to engage in like health behaviors, that doesn't make you a better person like than someone else who, if you have that choice as well. Like I think that that's another thing that we have to divest from, is this idea that like I'm a better person because I do these things. You're not.
I don't know, Summer. I definitely felt like I was a better person when I was like running 10Ks and stuff and posting about it on social media, being like, I did it in the rain. What's your excuse? I definitely felt like I was a better person.
Did you do that? Did you really?
Oh my God, this memory popped up of me and my then boyfriend running in the fucking snow and ice, and I said, we are so dedicated to health that we do it even when. And I was like, and now I'm like, what the fuck are you running in snow and ice? One, because it's dangerous, and two, why are you being such a self-righteous dickhead by posting it on Facebook? And you know, people, I'm so embarrassed. I need to find it again so that I can share it and be like, look what a bell end I used to be.
I definitely have some shit like that too. And I think like it might have made you feel like a better person, but that was because you were so insecure.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like you didn't actually like wholeheartedly feel like a better person. It was like that hit of validation that you were getting that made you feel like a better person.
Yeah, exactly.
I think.
You're absolutely right, because I was actually just being like, oh, look, I'm such a good fatty because I'm going out for a run. Please tell me that I'm okay, you know, which is, you know, I understand. Poor, you know, totally. Vinny then, you know, I understand. I get them. But they were a sausage and they were a dickhead, you know, both of those things at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, so then anything else you want to say on that, or should we move over to the other reason?
Let's go on to the other thing, which is, the other big thing is mobility, which is the other thing. Is people say, I am so unfit now that I've put on weight. A lot of people, since the global panini that we are in, they put on weight and now they can't do the things that they used to be able to do before the panini, or perhaps when they were younger. Or they say, now I go upstairs and I'm out of breath, and it's because I've put on a little bit of weight. So what do you think might be going on there, Summer?
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. There's a couple things. One, fat phobia, like just this sort of belief that, like, well, it must be because of my body size, because that's what we've learned. As well, like, sometimes when our bodies change, there's an adaptation period that happens that it takes a while for your body to, like, feel the same way that it did before. And so sometimes, like, for example, if your belly sticks out further than it did before, then doing particular things, like whether it's tying your shoes or doing a particular pose in yoga, like, that is going to get in the way, and it is going to feel different. And I think that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, or that you're, like, that you need to make a change to your body. I think it's just like, how can we work with the body that we have in this moment? And how can we take the focus off of weight being the problem and focus on, like, what we really want more of? If for example, we want to be able to, pick up more things or be more mobile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always find I find it so interesting that it's kind of like A plus B equals C, 1 plus 1 equals 10, because we've got a bigger body. Then of course it's because we have a bigger body that we can no longer do the things that we used to do. And a lot of times I say, get my detective glasses out, my monocle or whatever it is, the thing that, what's it called? The magnifying glass, and say, okay, what's gone on in your life? And it'll be like, well, in the last 2 years, we've been in a global pandemic. I've given birth to a baby. I've had postpartum depression. I suffered an accident when I fell down the stairs and hurt my back. I stopped being able to go to my weekly Pilates class. I haven't gone out and done any type of movement recently.
Yes.
And it's like, could any of those things together mean that you don't have the same abilities that you did? Maybe. And so if you do want to get back to whatever, physical ability or mobility that you had, what can you do? Exactly what you said, Summer. What can you do to support yourself towards those goals? Because if we try and lose weight, it's not gonna, we just know it's probably not gonna happen. And so, yeah. And the big thing as well is what you touched on, of people saying, I feel uncomfortable in my body. And I like to think about it. When I was a kid, my mum said to me, do you want to get a haircut? We had this hairdresser that would come around our house, like super cheap. And she says, you can get a haircut called the bomb. And I was like, the bomb? I want it. She was saying a bob, but I misheard her. And I was like, I want the fucking bomb. Yes, please. And so I had long, thick hair. The hairdresser cut it short, didn't do any layerings because it was just like a quick and dirty thing. And the next morning, I remember waking up and seeing myself in the mirror with this triangle of hair on my head and being like, like, what the heck? And it was really alarming. And when I shaved my head, going from long hair to having a shaved head, it's just weird and different, and so it's more noticeable. And that's hair. Having a bigger body is a lot, there's fat phobia behind that, and so of course it's distressing, and of course you feel physically uncomfortable, especially if you're wearing the same size clothes, especially if you're noticing changes in your body, and those changes in your mind mean that you're a bad person, or you're unhealthy, or whatever it is. And so you will get used to those new sensations of having a different body, the same way as you get used to a shit haircut like I got when I was a kid.
Yeah, I always use the example. I always use the example of like a new pair of shoes. It's like, you got to kind of break it in, right? Like, it's like the body that, if it's different, it's going to take a little while for your mind to sort of catch up and normalize it. And I think that one of the things that often we do is, like, we completely like try to not look at it. We try to like avoid it. Like we're just walking around with our heads cut off. And I think that actually exasperates the issue. Like even just, some physical touch, like put your hand on your belly or look down at your legs, like take a minute to take them in, and whatever feelings come up are valid, but making your body less familiar, or I should say making your body more familiar, is going to be beneficial to that process as well. Because I think that if we sort of just are like avoiding mirrors or avoiding pictures and we never see ourselves and our bodies have changed, and then we're going to do something we haven't done, then it's going to bring up a lot of sort of feelings and beliefs that we have. And so trying to work through that as well to become a little bit more embodied, I think is beneficial in that process.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I want to talk about in regards to mobility is wanting to unpack the ideas around healthism and ableism on this topic too. And the idea that as we age, and because of life, because we don't know what's going to happen in life, you will lose mobility. As you get older, you're not going to have the ability to do the things that you did when you were 20. And you never know what's going to happen. You might lose your mobility for any reason. And so if you're tying your self-esteem and your worth so closely to how mobile you are and your health status, then, I've got to break it to you. You're going to die one day. You're going to hopefully you're going to get old if we have the pleasure of being able to age. And so things will change. And so if we can untangle our self-esteem and our worth from what our body does, I think that's really crucial, because if we can't, then we're just going to be miserable for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing with like your appearance. Like we're all aging out of beauty standards. Like, and if the way that you view yourself as a whole is hinged on that, then it's gonna really hurt as you continue to see wrinkles and things hanging towards the ground more and more.
Yep. Unless you're like me and you had saggy tits from the moment that you had tits, then I had to I had to deal with that since I was like, I don't know, 12 or whatever. Anyway, so
I don't know. I don't have tits, so I can't relate.
You have tits, but they're not like bazookas like mine.
No, I know, but they're just very. Anyways, my little prunes.
Oh, they're so cute. So
it's fine.
Now,
I don't care.
Yeah, that's good. It was good. Now, I wanted to talk about the reason that you might actually need to lose weight for health reasons, because. And people might say, what the fuck? Hang on, you were both just talking about how you don't need to lose weight for health reason, but there could be a reason that you need to for health reasons. And that is if you are being denied life-saving surgery until you meet an arbitrary BMI number. So some people will say, like for gender confirmation surgery, we are not going to offer you gender confirmation surgery unless you have your stomach amputated first, unless you lose weight first. And so you may choose, because, it's a life or death situation, you may choose to undergo surgery or to participate in a diet knowing that it's harmful to you, knowing it's, not going to be resulting in long-term weight loss, in order to get life-saving surgery or access to care or so many different things that fat people cannot get access to because of these ridiculous BMI standards.
Yeah, and fertility, I think, is another one, although, it's not necessarily like life or death, but for a lot of people, that's like, they really, that's what they want. Like, that's their life is to be able to, have a family. And there's a lot of, fertility clinics or IVF that there's a BMI limit. And so
it's low. It is low. That BMI limit is basically you have to be straight size. Like, It's fucking...
Is it really?
It's so low. It fucking gets on my flaps. And I made this whole post on Instagram, medical fat phobia, how public health promotes the eugenics of fat people. And it goes into every single thing, not every single thing, because it would be like 50 billion things long, but lots of different things that we don't even realize, that how fat people are denied things. One that is very distressing to think about is transplants. So if you're on a transplant list, if you are fat, you are seen as, you're classed as higher risk, and so you're less likely to get a transplant. And so imagine if you're so sick that you need an organ transplant, and then having to either undergo stomach amputation or squeezing surgery or a diet in order to get life-saving transplant is just so violent. It just makes me, and and the list goes on and on and on of different ways that things are denied to fat people. And so you may, as a person, make that decision to say, do you know what, I know this is bullshit, but I'm gonna die if I don't adhere to their guidelines. And so I'm just gonna do it because this thing is so important for me. And the other thing to think about is when people are living with multiple marginalized identities, then perhaps dieting is the only way to be safe, or is a great way for them to be safe if they live in a fat body, because society is kinder to fat people who are trying not to be fat versus fat people who are proudly fat. And so sometimes it is easier just to engage in dieting to prove your humanity to society. And so that's really important to recognize as well.
Yeah, and I think you sort of see that with celebrities because they're under so much scrutiny and constant criticism. And even though they have wealth privilege, you still see how they will sometimes go down that road. And it's like, I think that it's also connected to that feeling of like, well, I want this, like the safety of not having that constant like barrage of criticism.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like I've done episodes on this of, what happens when your favorite fat celebrity loses weight. And I just think, fucking hell, like if I was a celebrity, I wonder if I might be succumb to the pressure, the absolute scrutiny of my body, every single centimeter of it being pulled apart, my not being able to get roles, being cast as like the funny fat one, all this type of things. I wonder if I would succumb to that. And this is coming from someone who is a fat activist. And so we're also putting these people on a pedestal as if to say, they should have their shit together, they're representing the fat community or whatever. And it's kind of like, but they're a human, and did they, we don't know their history with dieting and if they had a history with disordered eating and all that type of stuff. And they're in fucking Hollywood. Like every single one of their Hollywood friend is probably like, oh my God, I'm just going to rub some dust into my eyeballs and I'm going to lose weight, and so it's probably exhausting.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, no, I think you got to like have empathy for people because it just, the culture we live in is violent, as you said. So
yeah. So and especially those who are who are like super fat people, or fat people who are also people of color, or also are disabled, or also are trans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I think that's the crux of death to diets. I think we don't want to say exactly like we say at the beginning of every episode that you're a fucking idiot if you're dieting. We're saying diets don't support us in the way that we've been told that they do. And in fact, they're really harmful. But we understand if people want to engage in diet culture for many different reasons, and it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you're not smart or whatever. It just means that our society is not built to support fat people, and other marginalized identities.
Exactly. Should we talk about what the audience said?
Yes, please. You go ahead.
We asked the audience, do you know how to deal with health issues without dieting or attempting weight loss? I was sort of surprised by this. So my audience said 37% said yes and 63% said no, which is pretty close to yours.
Yeah, mine was 31% said yes, 69 said no.
Were you surprised?
No.
I felt like more people would say, I know how to deal with health issues without attempting weight loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they follow, like they follow.
If they follow us.
Like, I'm like, they listen to the podcast and stuff. And so that's not to say there's anything wrong with the people who said no, but it shows how pervasive this fucking messaging is.
Yeah. I think maybe what it is I think some people think, oh, other people can be healthy and fat, but not me.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of the bad ones, because I'm trying to think about, and maybe they haven't listened to our podcasts. Maybe they haven't been following us for a long time. Maybe they're new people. And the ones who said, yes, I do know how to support my health without attempting weight loss are the people who've been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just need to talk about this even more.
Yeah, I know. No, actually, it was like I was like, oh, wow. Like, okay, I'm so glad we're doing this episode. And there needs to be more. Like I did like a deep dive on diabetes with Gladys Oyston and Rebecca Scritchfield. And I'm like, I'm so glad I have that, because I feel like there's just so many health conditions that there's these misconceptions about. So
yes,
I'm like, oh, we just need to do more, more education around this.
Yeah.
Then we asked, what reasons do you feel you need to lose weight? And so my audience said, just feeling uncomfortable, sleep apnea, health, fitting into airplane seats, restaurant booths, things that are associated with, weight discrimination and things like that, pressure off joints, to get hip surgery, feeling more confident to be taken more seriously professionally. What about you?
Yeah, there's some really good responses, because, like to get hip surgery, that's a prime example of someone who will probably, unless they can find a doctor who will operate on them, have to do something which is not conducive with health to get surgery. And the reality is the world is kinder to thin people.
Yeah.
And that's what what people are saying, to be attractive. And so to be attractive, that's obviously subjective. The world tells us that fat bodies are not attractive. I personally don't think it's true. I think fat people are fucking amazing. But the world in general tells you need to be smaller to be attractive. But, anyway, so to be attractive, world is kinder to smaller bodies. So I look like the girls that the boys want, the boys fancy. Worried I have diabetes. And then someone sent a longer message, which is, I'm really struggling to access any healthcare as a mid-fat person, and I don't see that changing in my lifetime. The bigger societal fat phobia too. I feel simultaneously emboldened to change the world and take down the system and live radically, and life has been incredibly hard due to fat phobia, but I won't pursue intentional weight loss. For one thing, I'm in recovery from anorexia, and my whole life is talking about this. But yeah, I guess those are the reasons I feel that sometimes, but don't act on it. It's kind of like holding these two realities of, if I was thinner, my life would be better in lots of ways because of society. Mm-hmm. But I probably can't get there. And that sucks,
Yeah, that's really tough.
Yeah. So next question was, if you think that there are health issues that will mean you need to lose weight, what are they? So what are the health issues that you think that you need to lose weight? What did your people say?
Arthritis, bad knee, high blood pressure, diabetes, acid reflux, fertility. And I think I'm seeing yours. They seem to echo that. Those health notes, I feel, are so important as it relates to a lot of those. But that's where, again, that like the IVF and the fertility, that one's so tough, because fertility is different. If you're trying on your own, there's ways, but if you need IVF, then you may be denied that, which is one of those really hard situations.
Yeah. Acid reflux, I've never heard that one before.
Oh, doctors will just say it's your weight because of everything.
Yeah, right. I've got a sty in my eye. Have you
I was literally just going to say an ingrown hair in my eyebrow. So we were on the same wavelength there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as well, like with so mine said, diabetes, infertility, bad back and hips, arthritis, to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy. And so a lot of these are, to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy. So for people who are on the pregnancy thing, Nicola Salmon, Fat Positive Fertility, is excellent and will break down what's going on there and the realities of it. And so doctors will say like, if you're fat, you have a 50% increased chance of getting gestational diabetes. And then when you look at the numbers, it's something like a straight size person has a 0.5% chance of getting gestational diabetes, and a fat person has a 0.75% chance, you know? And so it's like, you have these scary things said to you and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to hurt my baby because I'm fat and it's my fault. And the reality is that gestational diabetes is not your fault to begin with, but the risk around these types of things are way overblown very often, and you can get pregnant if you're fat, and actually trying to lose weight to get pregnant is putting your body in a state that makes it harder to get pregnant. But Nicola Salmon talks a lot about that stuff. And so questioning these things like arthritis, and someone saying, "Oh, I could get arthritis," and they said I'm 40. My sister had arthritis from the age of like 20. It's she she got it from my mum. Mm-hmm. So and she's straight sized. And do straight sized people also have bad back and hips? Is it true that being fat is the cause of these things? No, our joints are massively supportive, and a lot of times overusing them by running and doing things like that, doing over exercising or having injuries can cause complications. But again, go to the Hayes health sheets for more information and how to treat this stuff from a doctor.
I want to give a shout out to Nicola Salmon's book, Fat and Fertile. It's so good. Even if you are not fat, I think it's like an amazing book on pregnancy and like trying to become pregnant. And if you are, obviously it's even better because that's who it's geared towards, but it blows up so much stuff. And she was also on my podcast too. So there's that interview there. I can't remember the episode number, but if you Google it, then she'll come up. So I'm always dropping her name because her work is so good.
And she's such a nice person. She's so nice.
And
she's a smelly British person like me, so
Yeah. But I think the other thing too I wanted to mention, the high blood pressure is interesting too, because you've spoken to this or you've shared this, I know, is that like if the cuff isn't the right size, because if your arm is, so this happened to my husband recently because he's bigger, and like for some reason the dental assistant takes his blood pressure and it came back high, and I was like, do you think maybe they use the wrong cuff size, because like he's big and his arm is massive, and so that can also like give a false reading, right? Like
if you have a too small cuff, it will give a false high reading.
So
and how often does a doctor or dentist have any more than one size cuff?
This was a dental assistant too, like no offense to a dental assistant, but I was like, why do they take your blood pressure? That's the oddest thing I've ever heard.
Anyways, you're gonna go run off and live your fabulous life, Summer.
I gotta go pick my son up, but these have been so fun. I've loved doing these. I feel like we've gotten some really good feedback from them, so who knows what will happen in the future.
Who knows,
whether we'll just keep having conversations at dinner or whether we'll choose to record them again.
Right. Well, that's it. All right. Well, thanks everyone for hanging out with us, and I guess we'll see you on the Instagrams, which is where you can find us. Where can people find you, Summer?
They can find me at thebodyimagecoach.com. My podcast is called Eat the Rules, and I'm Summer Innanen on all the social platforms. What about you?
I am fierce, fatty everywhere, easy peasy, lemon and lime. So come follow me. Let's have some fatty fun. Okay, well, we'll say goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye to everyone. See you later in a while, crocodiles.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fatphobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.